Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed, and today we are in the Socrates and Jesus, a Dialogue in Heaven text, and my goodness, it is a banger. So, last time, welcome to our chatters. Thanks for joining me today. Last time, we discovered and nailed down a few key terms in understanding philosophy. Fancy big words that will make you look really, really smart in front of your friends and in front of everybody at the cafe where you discuss your ideas. Provided you have enough money and time for coffee visits at a cafe. Not everybody under capitalism does. So, what were the terms? Well, first of all, bringing us up to speed, it's been a couple of days. It's the end of the weekend for me. I play a lot of music over the weekend, so I haven't had time to stream the last couple of days. So we have nailed down the root cause of human problems, a state of being. Certain human beings exist in a certain state of being. We can call the fourth state of being, because we have a list of 5 states of being that can be hierarchically arranged in terms of their profundity, in terms of how rational and intelligible they are, how much logos is present, or the way of participating in the logos, the intelligible structure of reality, and self, how much mind and self is present. 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 are void of self, logos, and self-reflection, or ousia. So 4 and 5 are the bad ones, and it's stage 4 that we call believers. We've been learning about what it means to be a believer as a state of being in conflict within yourself, and in fundamentally being different and in conflict with others. So others to others. We've nailed down how to understand that purely rationally. This isn't itself a belief. It's the logos. And in particular, it's recognizing how the terms of the logos pairs relate to each other. Whole, part, like, unlike, in conflict. So that gives us an understanding of the conflict that a believer is in as a state of being. But also we can understand that class of belief with the category of others to others. The third category of the dialectic, the fourth highest state of mind, and the third category of the dialectic, which has given us a puzzle. Is there a mysterious category of the dialectic, which is the structure of the logos, that we haven't yet seen? Oh. I mean... others to others, so that internal conflict is expressed in opposition to others. So to be a believer, we also have understood that the cognitive functioning of belief itself has to reject understanding. If you understand something, why would you believe somebody else? To be a believer or hey, welcome, it's Dory. Coffee, cheers. To be a follower of authority, which is what it means to be a believer, you have to reject your own self-development. So there goes the self, the first state of mind, the high one. You have to reject your own mind, because the higher experiences of mind transcend the physical world of belief. There goes the second. Also self-reflection, which is the the nature of mind, pure ousia. And you also have to reject understanding. Because again, if you understand something, why believe somebody else? And in particular, most beliefs are in opposition to understanding, evidence, and reason. Faith, they call it. So the fourth highest state of mind has to reject the third, second, and first necessarily. Which is why it's difficult to reason with a fundamentalist or a believer. The irony being is people pay a lot of money to go to college to remove their false beliefs about a subject and develop understanding. Pay a lot of money to understand veterinary science and remove their false beliefs about how puppies are born that they had from childhood. But for some reason that we are understanding, that basic premise that beliefs get in the way of understanding and understanding is better is rejected by a people who identify with that state of being. Religious people in particular. They're offered a way of being where they can pretend to be a knower, so long as they reject understanding, mind, and self, and evidence and reason. That's the sadism. Self-righteous ignorance. Also sadistic because you can't actually have a feeling of knowledge in the category of belief. And you can't actually make things with belief. You can never fly a plane based on belief. You can never build a computer based on belief. You have to understand these things. So what do believers replace as the feeling of being a knower that they self-righteously identify with? Breaking things. You can't make things, but you can break things others make. So, people who are examining the world have an expression, why is cruelty the point? For billionaires? For conservatives, for Republicans, for right-wingers, for fascists, why is cruelty the point? Why would they rather kill everyone instead of feed everyone? We understand that now. Belief does not have a feeling attached to it, so they have to replace that feeling of breaking something that somebody loves, including their life, murdering people, for what it means to be knowing. That's sadism. So we are really gaining an amazing and full, rich understanding of what it means to be in that class of belief, which is the cause of human problems. And so while we have understood the parts of the logos, how they relate to each other in conflict, you're a whole, you're a part, you'll never be a whole. Your limit, you have to accept limits of the belief. You'll never be free or unlimited. That's the conflict. That state of being of conflict and sadism and rejection of 321, understanding mind and self, is expressed as other to others. So that's another way of defining belief, other to others. They are other than others who are going through understanding, actual human development, actual learning, actual spiritual development. So we can say religion is the opposition or denial of actual spirituality by definition. So the fifth state of being is those who recognize that but do not, those who leave the category of belief in a downward motion. People who recognize, something problematic about belief, but I have not yet understood what that is. In other words, 321 that is rejected by belief, they do not reclaim. So as they leave the belief tradition, the effect of being a believer still remains. Whether you like it or not, you are still suffering the effects of your upbringing within belief. That's the fifth. That's categorized by the aspects of the Logos, whole and part, to be disconnected, strict dualism. You're only ever a part. And this is where we get things like, oh, everything is just relative to opinion. There is no truth. There is no understanding. Who's to say what's right and wrong? And this is another, not the cause of if the cause of problems is that fourth state of being called belief, then the conditions for those people to take power in our world is the fifth. Hey, religion is good or bad, who's to say? Maybe some religion is okay, some belief is okay. You don't want to be rude to people's personal beliefs, do you? Surely there's nothing wrong with belief, it's neutral. That is false and harmful because it's the condition for belief to take over, because belief is itself harmful by its definition, not an opinion. It's not this, well, you get 50 idiots in a room to agree on something, then it must be true. That's democracy. No, it's not true. Belief isn't neutral. That's easy to see. Tell the starving Palestinian children that Jewish belief is neutral. Zionistic Jewish belief is neutral. Tell it to all the people murdered by the Christians in the Crusades. Tell it to women who've been oppressed for 2,000 years. Pages of human history are soaked in blood because of religious belief, which rejects understanding, mind and self, which is needed to solve problems rationally. If there are good people in the world who happen to be a believer in what this or that, they are good in spite of belief, not because of belief. There's a famous old video on YouTube. I think it's Stephen Fry and maybe Hitchens, I'm not sure, against some religious authorities, and the premise of the debate was religion makes otherwise good people bad. And of course they won. Because to be good, you have to understand the good. And if belief rejects understanding, there you go. It's just that simple. It's that simple when you understand what belief is, how it functions. So that gives us our 5: self, mind, understanding, belief, and a mass of difference in disconnected between the aspects of the logo. So that's the cause of human suffering and injustice in our world. A category of cognitive functioning, how we perceive and make sense of the world, called belief, which is the 4th of a hierarchy. The conditions for that is the 5th, the modern liberals or Democrats who say, hey, anything is anything, that allow fascists to take over. And that's very easily seen in the 2025 Trump election. No one liked, well, a lot of people didn't like Trump, but the anything is anything crowd wasn't offering understanding. That's the 3rd. Wasn't offering a paradigm of universal principles that will always apply to everyone and always benefit. That's the 2nd. And they didn't show an understanding or care for the self. While they weren't Trumpers, they were in that class of a mass of slop, the 5th. Hey, maybe some religion's good. So, in terms of the conditions and causes of the problems in our world, that's it. Now, we also looked at the specific root cause to the suffering and injustice we see in our world by examining the version of belief that is prevalent currently. Judaism, Islam, and Christianity are the big three, and of course there are hundreds, if not thousands, of variations of those, but they all share a common root, Abraham, so they're called the Abrahamic religions. So we examined the origin of these by recognizing that the root fundamental analogy that's carried by all people within these traditions is, as God is to Abraham, so are you to God. Or, as God commanded Abraham to murder what he most loved, his son, so too are modern believers instructed to murder those instructed by their God. It's just that simple. An analogy. An analogy is behind human problems in our world. Isn't that interesting? Now, it should awaken a puzzle if we were able to remove or purify that false analogy that causes human murder and suffering and violence and injustice. Is there the fact that we can be so susceptible to a obviously terrible analogy, kill your son because someone told you to do it without any evidence or proof? Murder Palestinian people because Netanyahu said so? Murder Iraqis because Bush said so? Or God told Bush, or Jesus said so? Fight for the existence of guns in America because Jesus told Charlie Kirk so? Obviously wrong. If we as human beings can be so susceptible to an analogy that's false and carry it to the demise of our whole species, what does it say about us? In other words, why do we have the ability to hold on to analogy so powerfully? What's it for? That's the game we are in as human beings. If we can understand the cause of our problems, which we've been describing right now, what's the conditions for those causes within our soul? In other words, what is supposed to be there? If we have this pretender to the throne, a false analogy, sitting in our soul, to quote the Republic, in the most profound part of our soul, there is a part of our soul that can hold analogy. What's the analogy that's supposed to be there? That's the question. That's the question you can only ask if you are going through this kind of reflection on the nature of beliefs. If you don't care about your problems, or you don't care about the mind or human beings, you can't be in this game. You won't recognize you have a false analogy if you're not learning the dialectic and applying it to two things the book has mentioned so far: dream analysis and philosophical midwifery. You won't be going through the specific activity needed to find your own false beliefs and remove them. But if you are going through that, and if you're in this channel, then you probably are, you can ask the question, now that the pretender's off the throne, what's supposed to be there? What's it there for? What's that part of the soul there for? What's the true analogy we're supposed to be carrying in our lives? That's Awakening Philosophy, which is the name of the channel. Hey, Sus, you're back with your previous username. Have you been unbanned by Twitch? And how are you, by the way? Right. So, a root analogy at the, or behind the kind of belief that causes the suffering in the world. We also examine the fact that, hang on a second, that principle of carrying a false analogy that rejects self, mind, and understanding to accept a clan identity, putting you in a state of conflict, making you other to others who are doing understanding, others to others in your group even, and other to your own soul, in conflict with your own soul, that as a principle precondition exists in all people, even non-religious people, because that's the pathologos. The pathologos is a fundamental false belief about self and reality that we carry as our own false analogy, causing our individual suffering and conflict. So the cause of mass conflict on the global scale, religious belief, Abrahamic religious belief. And individually, within our lives and relationships, our pathologos. So as we're learning about the cause of human suffering through understanding, how are you, Sus? I asked you. As we're talking about understanding, this isn't opinion, this isn't a belief. To suggest, well, that's just your belief, would be a operation from that problematic fourth state of being. To suggest, well, that could be your opinion, but it doesn't apply universally, would be the fifth. This is the third. Using understanding itself to understand the cause of problems, A, and our development, B, which is what we're here for. Again, by definition. Now, as we read the book, we have the chorus jumping in at times like this and saying, surely not, surely not. Surely the meaning of life is whatever you want it to be. It's whatever you make of it. And surely you can't understand away belief. Faith is a good thing. I saw it on the news. Which would be, and of course the anti-chorus we've been reading, because this book is so amazing, addresses these people, answers them. Oh no, you're yelling so loudly out of ignorance because you are not trying to convince us, you are trying to convince yourself because you are other to other yourself. You're in conflict with your own self, mind, and reason. Which is why people can get so fervent in their evangelizing or Protestantizing. What's it called? Protestantizing? I don't know that. I can't pronounce that word. I've forgotten what it was. They project their own conflict onto others and think, well, if I can convince them, then that will convince me. And the anti-chorus pointed out, as we read, this is all in the book, by the way. This is just a review of the book so far. The book's a banger. The root cause behind that is a fear of self, mind, and understanding. So, the necessary rejection of self, mind, and understanding, 1, 2, 3, is caused by a fear of self, mind, and understanding that we get from childhood. It's expressed individually as our pathologos, and it's expressed culturally as religion, in particular the Abrahamic religions, which is why Abrahamic religions and the root analogy behind it, as Abraham must kill his son, so too modern believers must kill who they are told to by God. This is the cause of our suffering culturally, but it can be understood and addressed rationally by the best people out there. The people who have the courage and spirit and will and intelligence, good heart, good mind, to go through this process, they can help turn all of us around. That would be neat. And of course, you can do it. Whether or not humanity decides that this activity is worth doing, saving itself from extinction, is secondary to your primary goal to do this yourself. Because we are all born into this world necessarily having picked conditions for we're still processing a million emotions. That makes sense. How's the processing going? We all are born into a household where we get a false belief about self and reality that blocks us, keeps us a believer in our family clan way of being. That's the pathologo. So we're all here to go through this process. As a species, you could say, well, if every single part of the whole, every single member of humanity has a false belief about self and reality that causes their problems, then it's a very short walk to come to the conclusion, holy crap, maybe that's the point of our whole species. Our species as a whole is facing extinction because of this pathologos played out at large. Or our species is here primarily as the meaning of life for our whole race to move from belief-based cognition, the fourth, into understanding-based cognition, that's the third. And that's it. That's as simple as that. The difficulty is learning that. Because as Jesus pointed out a couple of times in the book, the many would rather be entertained than learn. And that's one of the difficulties we're trying to overcome here. Having fun, being entertained and learned. Learn-utainment is what we do here. I'm okay, a lot of vivid dreams, like changing my first name, moving to another apartment. Ooh. Glad to hear you're remembering your dreams. Are you recording them into audio as soon as you wake up? That's a tip to help your memory get as accurate as you can. Still accepting things are over with my ex, trying to move on, get into the medical field. That's fantastic. So now you've got a goal. As you have a goal, you can have steps to your goal. As you follow those steps, you will find the blocks come up. That's the conditions for what we have been talking about, solving human problems. The root cause, as we've been reflecting on today, behind those blocks is a false analogy. So let's use an analogy to understand that. As modern religious believers murder others, as Abraham was instructed to murder his son. So there's the analogy. Abraham is to moderns. So too, we have our own origin scene where we were instructed, or the conditions for our sacrificing what we most loved, that we carry in as an analogy in from our past into our present. There's the same analogy, past to present, blocking our development towards our goals. So now that you've got a goal, you can be surfacing the clues to that false analogy you yourself are carrying. Unsuspected. It seems obvious or common sense. There's a root analogy you're carrying. Every human being does. Parts and whole. And you're reflecting on your dreams. That's fantastic. Dreams will direct you to what you need to see to find that analogy. Once you've found that analogy and addressed it with understanding, poof, gone. And you can test that by being able to climb the next step towards the goal. So you get to verify your understanding. I sneezed. You verify your understanding as you're able to follow those steps you were formerly blocked from. Dreams are your guide into philosophical midwifery. know I'm not alone, but life's made me feel lonely in this. Sure. Not sure why it hurt so much. I knew it was over with. Good questions. So what you can do is, as you reflect on your state of mind, you can put them in one, have a little notebook, write these reflections on one side, and have dreams on the other side. Because that's what Socrates said last time about what it means to be in true human excellence, or what it means to be Socratic. To recognize the relationship between dream thoughts and our everyday thoughts. That's the game. So these are good reflections. They go on one side. Thoughts, feelings, states of mind, functions, and equally so, dreams. Healers rise up. I found a nice apartment. Ooh, lovely. I just Socratised. Yes. I sneezed in the most excellent Socratic way. I'm feeling emotions more and out of numbness. Oh, interesting. I'm feeling emotions, yep. So there's something to work with at least. Yes, this is the game. Literally every single human being is going through this process. Because every single human being got, or they're doing what they can to mask themselves from going through this process. And that can include seeking power over others to project their own puzzle onto others. So instead of reflecting on our conflict within caused by a false analogy, linking our past to our present, carrying a false belief about self and reality that blocks our understanding, mind, and self-development. Instead of addressing that with the help of dreams and the skill of philosophical midwifery, instead they seek power to project it on others and then inflict the same sadistic violence that they suffered onto others as a surrogate. In other words, projection. So you might recognize, if you follow thoughtful content creators, you might recognize a few slogans. Every accusation is a confession. That's why. Instead of doing what you are going through, they project it. And at the time of recording, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And all of the people in the American mainstream news networks are completely lying about everything that man did. Saying, oh, he was trying to champion free speech when doing the opposite. Literally, he was using language in the most disgusting way, debate. Not to help people find truth, but to push his own false beliefs that are his problem onto others and justify violence against others. Others to others. That's what it means to be a believer. Others to others. Now, understanding is self to others. That's the good way of treating other people. But belief can't. So the golden rule that they talk about, do unto others as you would like do unto you. Actually, it's do unto others what was done unto you, which is actually their understanding of God. God will smite those who don't like us, and he will bless those who bless us. And God wants us to be in charge. We are the chosen people. Just all horse shit. It's unfortunate in many ways, but sometimes beliefs just hold too many prejudices that people weaponize their words and spirit against others' free will and autonomy. And we are understanding exactly why that has to be the case. There is no belief that does not function in this way. Beliefs are not neutral. There are not some good believers and bad believers. Belief, in order to believe someone else, you have to reject your own understanding. And anyone who wants you to believe them has to get you to give up your own understanding to be a believer, a follower. So they have to teach you to fear your own understanding, mind, and self. So you reject or impose limits on yourself. That's what it means to be a believer, to accept the limits of your belief group that causes the conflict within yourself. And if you get into power, you will project the conflict onto others. That's the cause of human suffering, globally. With the belief of Abrahamic religions or MAGA, but individually, that's the pathologos as well. Holding on to childhood wounds of fear, honestly, but I'm going to challenge these self-imposed. Exactly, that's what you're here for. To challenge the limits that you get from... By the way, as a child, it was a solution to a problem. The issue is it no longer works. You could just say, hey, being a blind believer and fearing everything other than your clan helped human beings survive early evolution before we had reason and understanding. It's a solution that no longer applies now that we have reason and understanding. Language. Equally so, as a child, hey, if you were having fun exploring your own self and understanding, which would be a challenge to mummy or daddy if there were a Christian priest or in the Christian tradition, and they come in and they blow up at you, or they threaten you, don't you ever question things or whatever it is, don't reflect on yourself, do physical things. If that's the highest time they've ever shown themselves in opposition to you understanding, 3, in mind, 2, following yourself, 1, then as a child you think, holy crap, I didn't even do anything. I thought I was doing something obvious, because it is obvious. It's what we're here for. But if I challenged that, imagine what would happen. So the conclusions we come to from these early scenes, that's the cause of our analogy. If I challenge these things in the present, I will have the same result as I challenged these things or pursued these things in the past. That's the false analogy. Our present is like our past. Navigating the fear response. Dreams are what is our guide to help, and philosophical midwifery, which is the dialectic. So we're learning the structure of the dialectic here. As we are... It's a gateway, absolutely. As we are learning how to understand this whole thing with the dialectic, by saying, hang on a second, nothing that we've said today is an opinion or a belief. We recognize, hey, look, if these are the elements of understanding, make the board a bit bigger, not too big. If these are the elements of understanding, everything you've ever seen or perceived or thought about is a part or a whole. These are the pairs, the self-logos pairs. Everything is different, but also the same in that it's a thing. Like and unlike, limit and unlimited. We're just using the elements of understanding itself, meaning you have to accept limits to be a believer. But you are not free or unlimited. So there's the conflict. Equally so, the categories in which you use them, where are they on the board? Here we go. Categories. You use them to understand something. I want to understand beauty. Talk about beauty itself in relation to itself. Give a definition of beauty. Then talk about how beauty itself functions to others. Demonstration. Now, how does that functioning to others affect others to others? And finally, having been affected by beauty, how do you return? How do you relate back to the subject? These are the 4 categories of thought. Dialectic. The opposite of debate. So we are using them to understand states of mind, because believers are here. They are other to others. They are other to people going through this process of understanding. They are others to others even in their own team. Whether it be looking across at the other Mormons in your church and thinking, I'm not really the same as them, or even family members. I'm going to lurk and listen. Oh, thank you for lurking. That's important. I need to get an average of 3 people watching my stream to get Twitch affiliate. And I'm not doing that. Big feelings and still decompressing and finding resolve, processing a lot. Hang in there. It's great that you're putting words on it and you're looking at your dreams. This is what it means to be a believer. Which means we can understand the rest. Hey, this is what it means to be a mass of a difference. Modern Democrats. Three is the magic number. Disconnected, they are other from self. What's self for us in terms of our development? Self. Self-knowing itself as self-mind. That's the highest experience, enlightenment or knowledge. Penultimate enlightenment, I gotta say. And the self-logos is the third. Other from others. Everything is relative. Everything is just an opinion. Who's to say that beliefs are bad? Maybe beliefs are good. I don't know. I'm a Democrat. That means that the third stage, understanding, is what we are literally here as a species to move into. Because we all get this. If you don't deal with your own pathologos, you'll be susceptible to religious programming that imitates it. So what's understanding? The third? The self-mind, and self-logos functioning to others. That's the dialectic. How do you relate to people? Well, not through debate like Charlie Kirk, but through the steps. How do you make sense of your dreams? It's not projecting your own false beliefs and opinions you already carry. No, you apply the dialectic to understanding dreams. Midwifery, with the guidance of dreams, how do you find your own false beliefs and hidden analogy? Past is to present that causes your blocks in the present. Blocks to these things here, self-mind, self-logos, and self. You apply the dialectic to your thoughts. So you apply the dialectic to your dreams on one hand and to your everyday thoughts on the other hand, specifically as you climb the steps to your goal. Self-goal has to be your own goal. It's the dialectic. It's the dialectic all the way down, baby, and all the way up. Using the dialectic to move up is called anagogic movement. That's what we're here for. So if that's where we are, then the next stage in our development has to, by definition, be this one: self to others. What's the functioning of self to others? Providence, care. Not just empathy, but having the intelligence and skill to act out your empathy to benefit. That's art. You can't be a doctor if you don't care for your patients. That's why every single politician who doesn't care for every single person in their country should be automatically disqualified for their job by principle. If you're a doctor and you want to harm your patients, you will lose your license immediately. You're a sadist. That's called corruption, malpractice. The fact that we have Republicans existing as a political party is a fucking joke. Hippocratic oath, exactly. We are the blue team and we hate the red team. No. Or vice versa in America. Specifically, if you have conflict, then you are in the category of belief. You're not qualified. You can't believe you're a dentist and then do dentistry. No. That's terrible. You go to prison. Mental hospital. You have to have an understanding of how to perform dentistry. Why do we not demand that from political and spiritual leaders? It's obvious. The reason is we let people remain in this sadistic conflict between the self logos, in opposition to self-mind and logos, state of being, rule us because they look like our friggin' parents. We never let a pilot fly a plane without understanding and knowledge and care for the people on the plane, ever. Same thing for doctors, same thing for architects, every single profession except for politicians and clergy. They're supposed to be sworn into office, but they believe themselves entitled to their people as their own objects for their personal gain. Absolutely. And subject to them to their vision of what others deserve. Exactly. They play unto others the same cruelty that they suffered from their own pathologos from their own parents, justified by the cruelty of Abraham against his son. Oh, God said so it's okay. A lot of them don't even believe in it, but they know that others do. Like Trump's not a Christian, but he manipulates Christians. They step the lines they think they can break without getting caught, and money covers their blood trails. Exactly. In other words, they seek a position of power where they can hide from their job to address their pathologos here, and instead they project it. So one of those things that people say, they know they can keep doing wrong and they can get away with it as long as they walk this fine line of secrecy, and we are the secrets they keep. We need to bring it into the light. So every accusation is a confession for them because that's what they're doing. They're projecting their problem. Every human being gets one. It's called a pathologos. Onto others. That's the first thing. The second, exactly, projecting. The second thing is another quote. Hey, why is every accusation a confession? Another quote you see from people, content creators who are doing their best to understand this. Why is cruelty the point? Because they don't have an understanding of how to solve problems, because they are blocked. Understanding is here, the third. So they compensate by doing the same injustice, cruelty they suffered as a baby onto others, imitating their own parents. Do unto others the cruelty that was done unto you. That's their golden rule. And because that's what it appeared to be knowing from their parents, they think that they are big, strong alpha male knowers. That's why Trump's like, oh, I like the Chinese dictators and the Russian dictators. I like removing human rights. I like watching children starve, taking away school lunches. I like watching the Palestinians' children starve to death. And I like dropping bombs on people. Exactly opposite of, well, it's a kind of love. It's a sick love. Because this cruelty on others from a position of power is the model of love that all human beings carry from childhood. Therefore, we have a moral imperative to go through this process of midwifery and dream analysis to understand and remove it. It's not real love. It's a false model. So the whole thing is, hey, getting the pretender off the throne. Get rid of this false idea of love so we're free. Get rid of the idea of love from belief, from being others to others. What's going on? So we can actually have an understanding, which is this one here, of love, and experience what we seek in love. What do we love? Beauty and the good itself. That's knowledge. Understanding is this, self to others, actually functioning with empathy and intelligence that gives you the skill. It's no good just caring for people. You need to have some skill to back it up. I really, really want to help your puppy, but I know nothing about veterinary medicine, so I don't know. Thoughts and prayers. Oh, you're welcome. Explaining it's fun. So you gotta have the skill. So in other words, we've got belief is defined by conflict, others to others, this one here, others to others, division. A love of it because it is the feeling of this actual knowledge taken as a surrogate. But if we did have self-logos, if we did have the paradigm of actual goodness, beauty, and justice, self-mind, and we were completely empty of beliefs so we could allow self to be itself most fully, self-mind and self-logos, then we could function with the natural empathy, self to others, and the intelligence or skill to back that up to actually help people. What's that skill? It's right here. That's the skill. These 4 categories. That's the skill. Going through definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. That's the skill. That's the skill in understanding, which we just did right now. We understood the cause of human problems individually here. Culturally, with the Abrahamic religions, which is the same thing. We understood the 5 classes of human being existence that we are evolving into. The 5th, you are other from self. That's the everything is, oh, I'm glad that you lurk and you're hanging around. That's the, oh, nothing is real, or some beliefs are okay. Who's to say what's right and wrong, says the modern Democrats. Oh, a little bit of corruption, who's to say? That's 5th. 4th, belief. So we're using this, the structure of understanding, that's the skill. To what? To benefit ourselves and benefit the chatters. And as you have a coffee with your friend and review this, talk about this, you'll be benefiting your friend. And if you say it really loudly, then you'll benefit everybody in the coffee shop. It's a
win-win.
Win-win. This is the skill. But you can see how I could have empathy for Sus and go, oh, that sucks that you're going through difficulties. But thoughts and prayers. That's not real love. Doesn't help anything. Literally, all the response to Charlie Kirk's assassination was thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. Let's not use a skill of understanding to address the cause of problems and the conditions of problems so we can actually solve problems.
No one seems to be learning or addressing actual problems.
So you gotta have the skill to back up your empathy. That's understanding. That's this. So, understanding the class of human problems, belief, understanding what we are evolving into as our necessary next stage of evolution, individually and culturally, and as a species. That's understanding. What is it? Self to others, the skill and the empathy. Understand that, hey, understanding is also, you can apply understanding to help people understand their false beliefs and problems, but you can also apply understanding, because it's the function, or demonstration is another word for function, to understand the cause, not of problems, but also the cause of understanding itself. You can go up, as well as help people who are down. The cause of understanding, this structure and these terms. What are the terms? We've got the pairs that we've been talking about, whole and part, like and unlike, which we use to understand believers in conflict. The fifth massive difference in disconnected dualists, strict dualists. Understanders, you are yourself a whole in a state of being, while being able to function providentially with care, empathy, and skill to the parts. You are yourself like, but you can relate providentially to those who are unlike, rather than believers who are like other Mormons because they accept the Mormon limits, but they hate people who are unlike, or they, genocide or kill or murder or try and proselytize to people who are unlike. It's the opposite of understanding. Harm. Or the false reflection. Because reality unfolds through reflection. But we've also got the singles, because understanding uses these parts in conversation, in time, to reach beauty, to function with justice, to be in a state of excellence. These are the singles. And of course we have a 3, greater, lesser to equal, which is needed for analogy. The greater is our past when we have our problem that we carry into our present, making us equal or blocked as we were equally when we were in our past. But if we free up that analogy, we can say, hang on, what's the greater? The second. The model of excellence, beauty, and justice experienced all at once, that's the second state of mind or knowledge. That is to its lesser. The false image from believers. Or you could say the lesser is understanding, because it's lesser in that it's reflected in time. So you can have fun with analogies. You can say, well, that would mean the second, pure logos all at once has its reflection in a good way into understanding in time, but also has its reflection here. So there's lines of symmetry you can see and have fun with the dialectic. Third is a reflection of second, but the fourth is a distorted reflection of second. So there are lines of reflection. So there's a profound beauty inherent in this simple structure of the logos. So fourth belief, to make you equal to your parents. A is to B as A is to B. As my parents did to me, so too will I do to them. As Abraham was instructed to kill his son, so too do modern Christians kill whoever God, or the spokesperson for God, George Bush or Donald Trump or Netanyahu, says they must kill. So that's threes. Greater, lesser, and equal. 1, 2, 3. So these are the, and by the way, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, because while these are the parts or the aspects of understanding, we have the 4 as the categories, the structure where you use them, which means you can use all these same terms to understand every stage of human development. Having them all at once, knowledge, the second, which, as we saw in the text, requires us to separate from our body, which is the exercise of separating the soul from our physical senses, the exercise of philosophy, says Socrates. You can understand how these same terms function. Self to others, understanding, the stage of development we're here to do, the meaning of life for all human beings. We can understand how you can function with these same terms, others to others, a believer, you're other from others. And of course, you can see how you can be other from self, disconnected from this, no understanding, no model, no paradigm, no justice, no beauty, no excellence, the modern Democrats or the everything is relative crowd. I don't want to judge religion, I'm just a small bean. Or maybe some beliefs are good. I'm a small bean. The small bean crowd. They are just small beans. It's impolite to suggest that there is a standard, which is the second. Now what we also see, well, hang on a second, if that's fifth, fourth, third, and second, massive difference, everything is relative. Believers, conflict, others to others. Understanding, categorized as belief was conflict between the parts. Understanding is providence, intelligence, and empathy. That's the two together is art. You need to care about your patients and have the skill of medicine to have the art of medicine. That's the third, what we want. That's why we pay money to see a vet or a doctor, although it should be a human right, but that's a different thing. And all of them at once, out of time, eternally, that you can, as you experience that is the second. What's the first? If the third is self-logos, if the second is self-mind, what's the self? That's the mystery. So what? So all we have done is used the parts, just as, if you're a painter, you have your tools, you have your paints and your easel and your paintbrush and your canvas, and you apply them to make your painting. This is the paints of understanding and perception, but talking about understanding right now. These are the things. Every human being at every moment is trying to make sense of themselves and their world to reach the good, to reach their excellence, to reach the justice, to reach their self-goals. These are the singles. We're always doing the dialectic. Every single moment you're looking at this, or this is a part of the whole of my experience, or this is like other coffee cups, but it's unlike because there's coffee in it. Cheers. We're always applying these analogies, as we're saying. The human problems is just the false analogy at the root of our functioning. So in other words, we're just learning. We're in this video game, every one of us. All we are doing here is reading the instruction manual. That's it. But reading the instruction manual gives you the skills to play the game.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
That's why they call this the noblest game, or the hero's journey. All other hero's journeys are just metaphors or analogies of this process. And that's what we read last time. Last time Socrates said, okay, if believers have a false analogy and a false belief about God, how does Socrates use the gods? As a storytelling device or a metaphor to use as an analogy, there's our threes, to help us learn this. What's on the board here? Because this is metaphysics. It's metaphysics because when you apply it to understanding itself, because all of these things are experienced all at once. That's self, number one, experiencing itself, number two, as pure mind. That's metaphysics. And what's that mean? I heard a noise. My streamer is starting soon. I've got an hour. So we've got some time. That's metaphysics. Metaphysics is a fancy word of what exists before physics. Ooh. Here's the thing. Our dreams do a similar thing. Give us a story to express this, but the thing about dreams is it's not the thing about dreams is it populates the dream specifically with your own clues. So philosophy is metaphysics applied universally, and the stories. No, don't apologize. That's good. That's I wanted to hear that. That's fantastic. And also, as you share your thoughts as they come up, it helps the stream. Because as Socrates uses the gods to tell a story about this, that's theology, the study of God, which is the study of this, the second, the state of pure consciousness or the divine, yourself, knowing yourself as the eternal. That's metaphysics. Dreams do a similar thing. That's theology. It's a fancy word called theology, the study of God or metaphysics. What believers claim to have a monopoly, no, we know what God is, and we're not going to have any metaphysics because that's Aristotle, by the way. Aristotle spoke for Socrates and denied Socrates. It's what we believe from Jesus. By the way, it's not Jesus, it's from Paul, who denied Jesus. That's the crazy irony of the whole thing. So this is what theology actually is. A metaphorical, story-based personification of the elements of reality or knowledge, which is called metaphysics. Dreams do the same thing, except in a way that's specific to you to help you find your false beliefs that block you and help you in your reading and development. So this transition from fourth to third, it gives you the clues and the help and the guidance and instruction to do that in a story. But you will not get the meaning unless you unpack the story. So the Dream Master knows the truth and then puts it into a story, which means you over here get the story. The story or the dream is the mean between the extremes. You're on one extreme, you're ignorant of your problems and of the true nature of self. Dreams know it. But how does a dream connect? How does someone who knows everything connect with someone who doesn't? There needs to be a mean in the middle to connect. That's the mean analogy. That's this. Lesser to greater to equal. That's the middle term that you can both, that the greater Dream Master and you, the lesser, currently, can have an equal experience of the dream. That's the three-term self. That's the analogy. Self logos, third term, three terms. Well, how do you get the meaning then? You need the key. You need the key. The Dream Master takes the truth and puts it into a story. That means there's something here that you have to apply to turn the story back into truth. It's like the Dream Master has like one of those meals that the astronauts eat on the spaceship. But it takes all the water out, it dehydrates it so it fits on the spaceship. But before you can eat the nourishing space cookies, you have to put the water back in to expand it, rehydrate it, or something like that. If you don't, then you're not going to get the message. And tragedy, you might even project your own false beliefs onto it. So most people who have got interested in dream analysis lack the skill, and therefore they don't know how to unpack the actual meaning. So what they end up doing is project their own false beliefs. They stay stuck. So again, you need the skill. So what's the skill? Well, what we have just done today is apply this dialectic, this four structure, these three terms of analogy, these two pairs, and the single goals that we have: excellence, beauty, justice, goodness, truth. We applied all of this to understanding the truth. Our truth of evolution, the truth of the stages of development, the truth of human problems. You can apply this same structure to understanding false. That's midwifery. Using the same skill set, the same paintbrush and easel, your tools, to your thoughts that come up to block you from your reading. So you're reading, you're developing this, an understanding of truth. But it's the same tools, the same skill you apply to the blocks that say, hey, don't learn this. Or that thing that you've understood about the cause of problems being belief. No, reject that. You're just a small being. You don't have a good mind, a good self, or good understanding. Reject those things and just believe you're a small being. Now, it's false but we believe it. That's the cause of human problems. It's a false teaching. It's a false teacher in our past that we carry as a false analogy into our present. But we're going to listen to it. It feels true until we apply the skill. Having self-love or self-care isn't enough unless you also apply the skill to understanding. Caring for puppies isn't enough to kill a puppy. You need to go to a vet who has the understanding. That's philosophical midwifery. The exact same skill set that we've just been using to understand the truth of humanity, humans, and our condition. The same skill can be applied to systematically approach your thoughts and blocks to find the false analogy. Just as you can say, knowledge is the greater that is expressed in time through understanding. That's the good analogy. The false analogy is our past scene that blocked me is the greater that's expressed in time in my present. Therefore, I'm afraid the X, Y, and Z will happen, or I'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But what Socrates said in the book is that isn't enough. If this is philosophy or metaphysics, and my handwriting is terrible today. If this is philosophy or metaphysics, and in a story add a myth and you've got theology, if that's philosophy, metaphysics, and theology, then the skill applying to the same skill, the same systematic reflection, is philosophical midwifery. But Socrates says that's not enough, because while philosophical midwifery addresses your thoughts, your everyday thoughts, you need to see how that also relates to something else. Dreams. Understanding dreams. So while midwifery applies to everyday thoughts, dream analysis applies to dreams. So you can say dreams is the exact same skill needed to dehydrate the space cookie, unpack the providential, true loving meaning of our dream master, to get the message about our everyday thoughts that block us, and also about our reading to help us continue in our development. So it's helping us find the truth and remove the false. Therefore, it's both. The same skill set. The dialectic applied to the truth is philosophy, metaphysics, and theology. Applied to the false, philosophical midwifery. Applied to both, dream analysis. That's the skill. And then, by the way, you can add a fourth term, because it's always good to see if we can fit it into the structure of the dialectic. There's 4 terms here. Understanding how to share all of this. How can you make your own stories? How can you have conversations like this with people over coffee about what you've been learning in philosophy? How can you guide people through midwifery? How can you guide people through dream analysis? Applying the dialectic in conversation. And myth making. The 4 different uses of the same skill set of the dialectic. That's the skill, that you need to marry with your empathy and care for actual true love, or what we call love and logos. Yay. Love and logos. Actual art. And because we're fancy up in here, and we like to be really clever and impress everyone at the coffee shop, the word for love, philos, the Greek word for logos, in how we practice it, that it applies to understanding truth, understanding false, understanding both, understanding how we share it. Understanding, the word for that is dianoia. The art we're learning here, the art we're all here to learn, the fundamental art that underlines all art, the art we are here to master. Therefore, necessarily, if we care about loving people, if we care about solving problems, if we care about knowing the truth and fulfilling our purpose, if we care about dreams, if we care about being a good, loving friend to others, then therefore the meaning of life for everyone, by definition, is this art that we call Philodianoia, the best game in town, the only game in town.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're all wizards, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry.
And this is the skill that Hagrid or Gandalf
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
is offering to you, is saying, this is your call to adventure. Take my hand. This is the call to adventure. This is what it means to be a true hero. The art, the purpose, necessarily, to solve problems, false, to reach the truth, to unpack the messages of providence, dream analysis, and to be a caring, artful, truly loving person, love and logos, in all your relationships, both now and into the future, which might be, therefore, if this is for everyone all the time, our question that we started off with today, hang on a second, if the root cause of human problems is a false analogy expressed in human culture groups as Abraham, murderous Abraham is to modern religious people, and the conditions for that cause, this is the cause of our problems, this root analogy, that people will carry in spite of evidence, reason, truth, care, everything good. That's how powerful an analogy is. But the conditions for that is our early scene is to our present approach to goals. That's our pathologos. So that's the cause of problems, individually and collectively. What then is supposed to be here within our soul as the analogy that we can carry for all time, no matter what happens, no matter what religion we face, no matter what pathologos we face, no matter what dream we review, because all dreams are unique and different. All pathologos are unique and different, although they all follow the same structure, allowing us to apply the skill. What then is the thing that we are supposed to be carrying or equal to, that we have the conditions for in our soul, such that the false images gave us societal problems of religion, gave us our all other problems, the pathologos, there has to be something in there to carry an analogy so well, in spite of everything. What do we just come to? The meaning and purpose for all living beings on this planet, and maybe all planets, but we can say at least for human beings, philodianoia. A way of being, love in logos, love of understanding, that we can carry with us in the present, forever, into the future, in this life and beyond. Therefore, if it's something that we can use to find truth, remove what's false, address both, and share this, fully encapsulating the art and way of being that applies now, but to any dimension, any incarnation, in this body and out of this body. Therefore, a way of being that we can carry with us into the present and the future, making us equal to the self. So, that was our question in our review. We wanted to review the key terms: theology, metaphysics. There are two more that we left out. Let's do that now. Epistemology is what exists. So if there's this physical world where we encounter beliefs and we can develop understanding, our purpose to move from one to the other, the second state of mind, knowledge, is out of body. It's a whole different dimension. But of course, the first above that is a dimension itself as well. So we can draw a lovely picture of three circles, here we go. 3 circles. The physical world of becoming, where we get our false beliefs necessarily in order for us to learn the skill so we can develop understanding. Understanding can then be applied to beliefs. By the way, we got two things. Epistemology is the cognitive function. Epistis means knowing. How do you know? Ontology means on. Ontos means is, or being what is. So we got these 3 stages of reality and classes of cognitive functions. The cognitive functions is epistemology, beliefs, opinions, and images from the physical world, understanding and knowledge, together wisdom, which applies to the world of being, and then the mysterious, what's the state of knowing that applies to the self? We don't know. That's the question in the book. That's the mystery. And what are the levels? Well, there's the physical world of becoming. There's the model that it's a copy of, giving us the model for justice and beauty, therefore needed for politicians and clergy in a rational world. That's what we need to demand. But even that has a cause, that's the one self. So these are the terms: epistemology and ontology. As a study, metaphysics. Put into stories about gods, that's real theology. It's not something that is to do with belief or religion, that's garbage. Specific belief-based garbage, specific Abrahamic belief-based garbage, specific a reflection of our pathologos garbage we haven't addressed. So those are the key terms that we wanted to review today. We also wanted to look at this mess. Reflect on how we have understood those terms. That's the skill that we've been learning. That's the dialectic, which has these single terms, has these pairs, has these threes, and has this 4, which is the structure. And of course, the mysterious 5th. We're wondering about the self. What's beyond these 4? That's our skill. that you apply to truth in philosophy, metaphysics, and theology. You apply to the false in midwifery. You apply to both in dream analysis, and you share it by creating your own mythology and functioning as this all the time. That's what it means to be a truly loving person, not just the empathy, but the skill. Love and logos, therefore, that's the art. That's the purpose of everyone here. That's needed to solve problems. It's needed to be actually caring. It's needed to do these 4 things. Therefore, our question is, hang on a second, if all problems have a root analogy at its core, either Abraham or our individual pathologos early scene that we project into the present, right? All accusations are projections or confessions. That causes our injustice. Cruelty is the point for people who haven't gone through this, which is a copy of their parental figures, an imitation, not learning. The actual golden rule they carry, do unto others the same injustice that was done unto me. If that's the cause of all problems collectively with this analogy at the core, Abraham is to modern Abrahamics, or all people, our early scene is to our present goals and our pathologos. The fact that we have the ability to hold on to that as an analogy tells us something about our soul. Why the heck is it there? Just to be cruel? That's irrational and stupid. There has to be a good reason. If we get these off the throne, what should sit on the throne that we can carry with us in all times in a good way, in our present life and beyond, whatever life, whatever incarnation, whatever dimension we find ourselves in, whatever ontology reality. That was the question we started with, and it seems like we have an answer, or at least a working hypothesis we can carry with us in our quest. Philodianoia. The love of understanding.
Wow.
Understanding. So, neat. We solved the puzzle that we aimed to solve in our reflection today. There was one other puzzle that came up. Seeing as this is true and necessary, how do we share it with the world? How do we do this last thing? That's the game. We have been given from Plato the dialectic applied to truth, the structure, the skill. We have from Pierre Grimes the dialectic applied to what's false in the midwifery book that we read on this channel. We have to ourselves on this channel discover the specific application of the dialectic to dreams ourselves. That's the puzzle that Dr. Grimes left for us, giving us an opportunity to master this skill, which is our reason for being here. And then the final puzzle Pierre Grimes left to us is the one in this book. How do we share this? This is what solves all problems and will create a utopia and necessary for every human being. It's literally the meaning of life. How do we share it? Given people would rather be entertained than learn. Given people think they already know their problems. They already know what self and reality is because they're stuck at the level of belief. How do we share it? So we had a question, what's the real analogy? We got an answer, but in answering that question, we gave birth to an even more profound question. Given that this is the true term that needs to sit in the analogy we carry within our soul, how do we share that? I don't know. Something that we are working on, wondering about every day as we read on this channel. And hey, maybe next time, as we continue to read, we'll find an answer to that question. Thank you for joining me today. It was a quick one. Shorter than the last ones. But it's important because we had a good question, good answer, and a new good question to take with us in our next reading. That's what we'll do next time. We'll continue to read with that question in our mind. Thank you for joining us. Once again, you can follow on YouTube or Twitch and on Discord. On Discord, you'll get a notification when we go live. You can find a link to the text below, and you can find a donation if you want to support the channel by buying me a coffee. If you do, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.